One day I'm gonna be everything I wanna be. I don't let it get the most of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be everything I'm gonna be. My future right in front of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be free. Then let me be free.
From the depths of darkness, a voice emerges. A host with a fire burning in his soul. With a heart, steel, and a spirit unbroken. He rides on two wheels, ready to claim his throne. Amidst the chaos and the thunderous roar, insane wheels rise as a force to be reckoned with. Fueled by the power that only metal can bestow, he takes his stand, refusing to submit. Insane wheels hear his battle cry. Metal and mayhem will never die. Rituals report he pays his way. More legend in the making, day by day.
Well, somehow, some way, magically, we are alive and not completely hungover on this beautiful Monday morning. Great to see everybody in the chat. There was a lot of shit, obviously, that happened over the weekend, and so we're going to be discussing a little bit about what has happened. So the way that I have this titled, however, is Historic Winter Storm. Obviously, you guys know all about it. You guys, majority are probably in it. It's a 2,300-mile storm right now, so it's a big one. Minneapolis ice shooting latest, as well as White House briefing. It's not necessarily scheduled. What's so funny is it's not on the White House scheduling, but for some reason it's on the news that there's a White House press briefing. So I put it on there. I'm not sure if we're actually going to be able to see it or whatever the case is. I got Lucy hair all over me. But nonetheless, and I say and top stories, obviously. So the way that our lineup is going to be is this morning, we're going to talk about Minneapolis shooting, Governor Walz's remarks on Border Patrol shooting. And that was on Saturday afternoon. That's when he actually gave this speech. And then we have new angle of Minneapolis shooting appears to show suspect disarmed. And it is graphic. It does let us know. We also have an update from Secretary Kristi Noem. She speaks on the Minneapolis shooting as well. And then as well, if you know who Frey is, the mayor of Minneapolis, asked Walz for National Guard help police chief speak on protests. And then we've got Noem says agent's finger was bitten off following unrest in Minneapolis. Now, I actually saw the picture of the actual, I don't know if it's his index finger or if it's thumb, I can't remember. But nonetheless, there was about this much bitten off from an agent, and he literally lost his finger, and they had it in a little cup. I saw it on social media yesterday. I was like, whoa, that's fucking pretty brutal. Anyways, then we're going to be moving on into Minneapolis fallout. Schumer says, which is Chuck Schumer, by the way. Schumer says Dems will vote no on funding bill if DHS is included. And then we've got ICE and CBP, which is Border Patrol, by the way. Leaders speak after deadly shooting involving federal agent. Former police chief speaks after federal agents involved in Minneapolis shooting. So we have a lot of shit obviously going on up there in Minneapolis. It's a shit show right now. And then on top of that, we've got the winter weather that's coming through, and just, I mean, not only the amount of cold that we're dealing with, but as well as power outages. We actually have a bit of a power map that the media gave us. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. And then just an hour ago, Trump says he is sending border czar Tom, I think it's Homan to Minneapolis. So he's going over there to Minnesota. very interesting developments that are happening this morning. So before we get all into the craziness of this morning, make sure you guys come in and hit that like button, man. It helps out the show immensely, and it's free to do so. If you guys are brand new to the channel, hit that subscribe button because it's also free. And this is what we do Monday through Friday, man. Regards to, news. But we've got members only on Saturday morning, same time that we go on live Monday through Friday. It's a great time, man. And but here, let's get into the money part, though. Please consider becoming a member, starting only at $3.99 a month. We're making sure we're not breaking the bank out there with anybody, but check it out. This is what allows us to be on these airwaves as well as have these lights on. So I very much appreciate you guys becoming members and staying members. Little side note here, follow my Instagram at BallValveTV, where I post everything behind the scenes of not only my life, but as well as the show, Millennial Food Time, breaking news, and as well as the campaign. Make sure you guys follow me over there. And we also have a Discord server for all of you legends as well. We've got like 95% of the IWF in there, but I'd like to have the remainder of you guys join up with us. We have it, all the links, by the way, are down in the description down below for any of the videos that were, any live video. And then last but not least, all super chats, super stickers, gifted memberships, and membership signups are, of course, all going to be shouted out and presented live onto the show. But if you guys would like to skip that YouTube 30% brutal cut that they take from your hard-earned cash, we have these platforms right here that you guys can donate to. And, of course, I will read out whatever comes our way, just like a super chat. So I've got my email up, ready to rock and roll. All right, good morning to everybody, man. We got Jimmy Mack in the building, as well as Bill Castle. We got Charles as well. We've got Warland. Great to see you guys. Good morning to you guys. I'm scrolling my way down. We've got Brother Steve Easy as well. Good morning to you, kind sir. We got Alfred Patterson. Great to see you in the chat. Hopefully you're enjoying your morning. We got Rabbit of Chaos as well as Steve Posey. Good morning to you guys. Let's see, we're scrolling down as well. We got Carrie in the building as well. Steve Posey, we got Rapid Chaos. Easy Frank, my man. What's up, Frank? We got Tolga as well. Good morning to you guys. Let's see, we got Brother So Loud as well from the Boondocks of North Carolina. Shout out to my man. We got Motobomb as well. Good morning to everybody. Love and peace. Much love and respect to you, kind sir. Great to see you in the chat. We got Two Wheel Jesus. Good morning. We got Sterling Wheel in the building as well, saying good morning, kids. We got Sick Bastard as well. Thank you guys for the raid. If you guys came over, by the way, from Sick Bastard, very much appreciate you guys hanging out with us this morning. Yes, that is awesome. I just saw that. And we're scrolling down, trying to get to all the comments. We got Crystal. What's up? How do you guys? I'm going to be lurking and cleaning. Yeah, no worries, but make sure you hit that like button, right? Shit. We got Road Rage as well, man. A legend and an OG of the chat, by the way. We got Mountain Woman. Good morning. Good morning. Scrolling down. Yes, it is freaking way cold. For us here, it says it's 20, but it says it feels like -1. And I'm like, oh, shit, man. That's a little too cold for me. We got Dylan Patterson as well. Good morning. Great to see you guys in the chat. Scrolling down as fast as possible, guys. I'm trying to catch up. All right, here we go. We're going to get right into the craziness this morning. We're going to start off from what happened on Saturday. This was over the weekend, obviously, and Tim Walz had this on Saturday. Now, Minneapolis shooting, Governor Walz remarks on Border Patrol shooting. Here we go.
Well, as I said last week, this federal occupation of Minnesota long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. It's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of our state. And today that campaign claimed another life. I've seen the videos from several angles, and it's sickening. But I have a strong statement here for our federal government. Minnesota's justice system will have the last word on this. It must have the last word. As I told the White House in no uncertain terms this morning, the federal government cannot be trusted to lead this investigation. The state will handle it, period. Let me say something else, and this is critically important.
Wait. Your state that just got caught with a whole bunch of fucking fraud, we trust that over what? We don't trust neither of you guys. We don't trust the feds or the fucking state.
All of us understand what happened this morning and the tragedy of it, and my deepest sympathies to the family of a 37-year-old Minnesota resident, a lawful firearm concealed permit carrier, something that I've been lectured to by Republicans for decades. That is not only your right, it's your duty. We know that the potential to further inflame tensions is high, and to Minnesotans, there's a difference. We want calm and peace and normalcy back to our lives. They want chaos. We cannot and we will not give them what they want by meeting violence with violence. Minnesota and our local law enforcement, as you have seen, have done everything possible to de-escalate. Local media has reported extensively on the cooperation to de-escalate this situation. Donald Trump, I call on you once again.
What's up,
Remove
Doomer?
this force from Minnesota. They are sowing chaos and violence. We've seen deadly violence from federal agents again and again and again. But in contrast to that, on these frozen streets, what you witnessed yesterday was the best of Minnesotans, peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. And I attended in the church basement hundreds of Minnesotans from all faith packing care packages for families that have been ripped apart.
Get angry, Tim. Get angry.
Despite the horrific acts by this federal government, Minnesotans are standing up for the rule of law. They're protesting loudly and urgently, but peacefully. It must stay that way, Minnesota. Minnesotans are witnessing, and we're creating a log of evidence for the future prosecution of ICE agents and officials responsible for this. They're helping their neighbors. They're walking their kids to school. They're feeding families. I salute their courage and their restraint, and I call on all Americans to see the decency that this state is exhibiting and the horrific cruelty, unprofessional.
We got my man NPC, the game in the chat, by the way. Gabriel, I very much appreciate, I watched back yesterday, last night, that you actually, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but this man right here actually hosts a Streamers Awards once a year. And he actually, I won a little spot of the most truthful or truther YouTuber or whatever, man. I'm very honored by that. Thank you for that, NPC. I'm very grateful. That was fucking awesome, man.
Absolute abomination that is passing for what these ICE agents are doing on our streets. They think they can provoke us into abandoning our values. Well, they're dead wrong. We'll keep the peace, we'll secure the justice with our neighbors, and we'll see this occupation ends. Minnesotans and Minnesota law enforcement that continuously is being denigrated by this administration will continue to be the adults in the room, the professionals in the room, the decent human beings in the room that will keep the peace. With this, I'd like to turn it over to Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson to update you on the situation as we know it.
We've got well over 400 people in here. Make sure you guys, we got 490. Make sure you guys hit that like button as well as double tap the screen. You guys don't have to like the craziness that's happening in our country, but you guys can like it for me and what's happening here and what we do here. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Governor. I'm Bob Jacobson, Commissioner of Public Safety for the Department of Public Safety, and again, it's my honor to serve in that position. A man was shot and killed this morning in Minneapolis. I want to pause and remember what cannot get lost in this moment. A man died. His family and friends are feeling unimaginable heartbreak and trauma, and I know Minnesotans and I know our community will rally around this man's family and friends to support him. I also understand clearly that people are upset. They're scared, they're confused, and I want to assure you that this state's public safety officials and our local law enforcement partners are doing everything in our power to get answers, to help return a sense of normalcy back to our communities. You have the right to demonstrate peacefully. We recognize that demonstrations are often driven by strong emotions, beliefs, and a desire to be heard. But please, please remain peaceful. And I want to say it again that because it is important and it is critical. Peacefully demonstrate. By doing so, you help local authorities to get answers. You help us to do our investigations. By remaining peaceful, you help ensure nobody else may be killed or injured. The thousands and thousands of people who gathered yesterday in Minneapolis proved that Minnesotans can make their voices heard peacefully, and they can do so without violence, and they can do so without destruction. State resources are available and ready to support our local law enforcement partners as requested. And those resources include the Minnesota State Patrol, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and the Minnesota National Guard. With that, we'll stand for questions.
So we got Nomadic Pirate.
Is there any reason to believe that it will be answered differently? Have you had any conversations with the president, with the federal government, and is there any indication that they are going to pull out or back down?
Well, I spoke twice this morning, shortly after I received the call of this shooting. I spoke with the President's Chief of Staff, and first request was to get her people out of there, to get these federal agents out of there if they were going to cause more chaos. And second call is with no uncertain terms that we will investigate this. We will not be stonewalled. What we've already seen, and you saw it this morning, before any investigation is done, you have the most powerful people in the federal government spinning stories and putting up pictures, and unrelated people who we don't know anything about, and a picture of a firearm to try and spin a narrative. And I ask Americans, this will end when enough Americans say this will end. Do I have any confidence Donald Trump will do the right thing? No, I don't have a lot of confidence Donald Trump will do the right thing. I do have.
And we have confidence in Minnesota. Get out of here.
A lot of confidence that the majority of the American people will do the right thing. And I think there cannot be very many people across this country looking right now, after all the reporting that's been done, after everything that's been said, under the pretense that they are here about immigration reform, and quit referring to these people as law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. We have law enforcement who do an incredible job. And to listen to Greg Bavino.
Yeah, there's local police, which is law enforcement, and you have federal agents. I mean, it's very simple.
No. Denigrate the work of our people who are out there cleaning up their mess. No, I don't have a lot of confidence that he himself will do it. But here's what I do have confidence in. There's a whole lot of Republicans, for whatever reason, cannot find their spine. But they might find the ability to know that they're not going to win another election as long as they live, unless they stand up for what's right.
Yeah, right. What are you talking about? This guy's fucking delusional.
Just a follow-up, because then if that is not the case, what are the people of Minnesota supposed to do who are in the middle right now? Because if they do Stonewall and you're trying to investigate, is that forced?
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
I agree,
look,
Steve
I'm
Easy.
speaking to the people of Minnesota right now. I hear that scream from you, and I'll continue to plead and ask you for peace. And I know the answer is you ask us for peace and we give it, and we get shot in the face on the streets coming out of a donut shop. We cannot give them what they want.
Yeah, they get shot in the face for just walking out of a donut shop.
I don't know how to say this in so many terms to watch the madness that we've witnessed over this last week coming out of the White House and what it's doing here. My confidence is, and I say it to Minnesotans, as I've said,
what's up,
exercise
TVG?
your First Amendment rights, speak out, bear witness, and document legally. But I understand the risk in that, and I understand the courage that it takes to have people out there doing this. Thank God, we have video, because according to DHS, these 7 heroic guys took an onslaught of a battalion against them or something. It's nonsense, people.
What's up,
It
Virgil?
is nonsense, and it's lies. So my confidence is this, Minnesotans. You know who you are, and you demonstrate it every single day, and we damn sure know who these people are. The American public knows, and this needs to be the event that says enough. Go ahead. No, I'm up front.
This is going to be the last question I take. We got to move on.
You talk about you don't trust the federal government to handle this investigation. We know with the Renee Good shooting, BCA said that they were blocked from accessing evidence. Has there been any suggestion that BCA is not allowed to do this investigation? Do you have officers on the ground doing the investigation right now?
The question was related to whether or not the BCA is on the ground currently with the investigation, and a reference to previous investigations that the BCA have attempted to be a part of. What I'll tell you right now is that we no longer have BCA agents or Public Safety, State Patrol, or Minneapolis on the ground at that crime scene.
Is that an instruction by the federal government, or did you pull your agents out?
What I will tell you, and not to get further into the investigation, but DHS pulled out of the scene, leaving that to Minnesota State Patrol, Minneapolis. We did not have enough resources to be able to hold that ground safely, and we had to leave that scene because of the number of people that were available and the safety of those in the public and the safety of our teams. We were able to get there, but at that time we were not able to hold that scene to do a crime scene investigation. I can't talk any more about those details.
Who is handling the investigation? It's not either DHS nor state officials right now.
It's going to end up being, well, what they're going to fight for is that they're going to investigate on a state level, which I can guarantee you that's not going to happen.
We'll have more on that, but the BCA is engaged and involved, and we are working at the request of the Minneapolis Police Department on this, on the scene and in this investigation. So we are there, we're available. We want to make sure that we continue to work on this and engage with our federal law enforcement, but at this point, we don't have anything more to share about the crime scene. Again, we were not able to hold it. We want to make sure and keep people safe, but federal law enforcement left the scene and left us there.
All right, we're going to move on from there. Guys, we've got well over 1,000 people in here. We've got 1,164 people in here. Make sure you guys hit that like button, double tap the screen. I very much appreciate it. We've got, I think, about 9 more stories to go through this morning. So we've got a big morning. We've got to cram it all into 1 hour. That's what we do here. So real quick, we've got a new angle of Minneapolis shooting appears to show suspect disarmed. And this is a graphic warning they gave us. So let's
in
go
the
ahead
area
and check it out.
Glam Donuts in the streets and had a cell phone out recording, but then we're not sure what led up to the interaction at that moment between agents and the people that he appeared to be with.
Right, he seems to be in the street, kind of waving a car through. Why? I don't really know. I think we have a picture of the man who was shot and killed. That is Alex Pretty, the man who's been identified as an ICU nurse who was shot and killed. The mayor saying he did have a permit to carry that weapon, or at least a weapon. But that is the man who has now been identified by his family as Alex Pretty, who is deceased after this morning's shooting by Border Patrol there at 26th and Nicollet.
And we do have available on Zoom right now Rob Dorr, the president of the Minnesota Gun Owners Law Center, to talk about use of force issues and his assessment of some of these cases that we have been following. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. This is now the third federal agent involved shooting in Minneapolis as a result of Operation Metro Surge. We had Renee Good.
What's up, Brother Blair? Great to see you in the chat.
January 7th, there was a man that ICE says they were trying to detain from Venezuela on January 14th, and then this one this morning. So if you could first just, I know there's a lot of video circulating. It's hard to draw conclusions because we don't see what was happening 15 minutes before this or what was happening right in the middle of that huddle. But what are your impressions of this situation so far?
Yeah, initially I was kind of, I had a little bit of skepticism seeing the DHS's initial statement that they made, because they said that the person approached.
Real quick, I'm just going to say, listen, man, if you're going to get on camera, well, especially on the mainstream media, this ain't your little, YouTube podcast or some shit. You're going on the mainstream media. Can you get a working camera and, an actual microphone? That'd be great.
To them with a firearm. They didn't say that the firearm was drawn or that, threatened officers or anything like that, just that he had a firearm. And now every video that we've seen seems to indicate that there was no visible firearm at that point. So it's uncertain why there would have been any perception of a threat there. And then, it's very difficult to see what happens in that huddle. But one of the most recent clips that I've seen seems to indicate that prior to the shots being fired, one of the agents who didn't have a firearm in his hand reaches into the huddle, pulls out a firearm, and it matches the photo that DHS put out this morning perfectly. So my take of it is it looks like he was actually disarmed prior to the fatal shots being fired.
Wow, and as you said, there's a lot of angles, and it's hard to tell in that, like at what point did they see the weapon? Is, from what you can tell, any sign that the man on the ground was reaching for his weapon when it was pulled away? Anything like that? Hard to see in there, I know.
Yeah, the newest video angle that I've seen, it looks like that it's got the facing towards the man. Yeah, it's this video right here, and you see his arms are kind of pinned right in front of him as he's on the ground, and then then you see the agent in the gray coat there, who doesn't have a firearm in his hand, reach around and pull out a firearm. So right here, you see it looks like the man's. I think Mr. Pretty's arms are pinned down in front of him. So he's not reaching for his firearm. Both hands are right there. It's difficult to see what happens right in this second here, but we do see that the agent comes back with the firearm in his hand. That firearm matches the firearm that was photographed by DHS, saying that it was Mr. Pretty's firearm, and then that's when you hear the shots fired.
Do you know, it's been often said that there really only has to be the fear. A police officer or an agent needs to fear for his life or the lives of his coworkers, the people with him. But what is the threshold? I don't know if you know that answer. What is the threshold, or where that's reasonable?
So it's reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. So they have to have a reasonable, I mean, based off of the circumstances, what would another person in that situation perceive it? You can't have an unreasonable fear, but it has to be reasonable for the circumstances. And, you know, barring any more information, it seems like there's at least, it's questionable whether or not a person who has been disarmed was capable of producing that deadly fear for police officers.
Right. We're speaking with Rob Dorr, the president of the Minnesota Gun Owners Law Center. We just want to make sure that we're reminding people who you are, what you represent, and that you are also a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. So what are you thinking in terms of
I'm so behind
what
on
the
comments.
public needs to understand? Because I think there is an inclination to jump to conclusions. This is a very volatile time that we're living in, and videos are being shared the moment after something happens. And so what would you say in terms of investigating a situation like this? What does the public need to remember as all of this information is coming in so quickly?
Yeah, I think in the first 24 hours, the information we get isn't always the most accurate. I think initial reports was this man was a 51-year-old man. So things develop quickly, and so I think it's always good for people to absorb information, but keep it with a certain amount of skepticism. But then also, there are some things that are just objectively true that we can look at. Like for example, if he has a permit to carry, it's not unlawful to be carrying while you're exercising your First Amendment. You don't have to pick between which rights you exercise. It's not a crime to be near police officers. It's not a crime to be in a protest with a firearm. The crime comes when you actually, take that firearm and cause somebody to be in fear of death or great bodily harm, or otherwise threaten them. That's the crime. So I think there are things that are objective.
Yo, TVT is requesting some of the moderators on the horizontal side to come on over to the vertical for a little bit. We have, right now 1,500 people, but we're kind of bouncing around from 1,500 to 2.8 thousand. So thank you, mods.
True, but then also things that are open to interpretation, and those tend to develop, especially as time moves on after the first 24 hours.
And Rob, one of the questions I see that keeps coming up, you just mentioned that it's not illegal for somebody to be armed to be near police officers, but is there a reasonable distance that protesters should be keeping from armed federal agents or any police officers in terms of a protest or somebody who is anti the reason they're there? What is that reasonable distance?
There's not like a hard set number. Generally, wherever you're lawfully allowed to be, you're free to protest there. So that's generally,
What's up, Josh? Good morning to you. Great to see you in the chat, bro.
Sidewalks,
Appreciate that.
public squares, things like that. You're not allowed to block roadways during protesting. That is something that does happen commonly. So, you have to be mindful of that. And then ultimately, the courts have held that the government does have the authority to declare an assembly unlawful, and you are required to disperse at that point.
Okay,
Rob,
I think that's pretty self-explanatory. All right, we're going to move on. Now we're going to see what Kristi Noem, we have an update from her. Secretary Kristi Noem speaks on Minneapolis shooting, and this is on the recent shooting, obviously. Let's go and bring this up. Let's talk about it.
50 million Americans in 40 different states. We've been working together here at the FEMA headquarters and have opened our National Response Coordination Center and are working with local and state authorities to make sure that we're getting individuals and communities pre-deployed resources that they may need, and also preparing them for the upcoming days, which will significantly impact them and their citizens. The Trump administration and FEMA are working closely with them to get them information, to get them resources, and to help them be prepared and well equipped for the road ahead as we go through this next week. But before I take any questions and give more details on the storm and its impact, I do want to address the tragic situation that we saw in Minneapolis today that unfolded on the streets. It occurred with DHS law enforcement as they carried out their lawful duties to keep Americans safe in the threat of criminal illegal aliens in this country. At 9:05 a.m. Central Time, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials and officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis against an illegal alien whose criminal history included domestic assault with intentionally inflicting bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds of protesters then showed up at the scene. They began to obstruct and to assault law enforcement officers. We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off. Crowd control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that...
Now, I actually saw the picture of the agent's tip of his finger in a cup, like a I don't know if they're going to try to put it back on him or how the hell that fucking works, but yeah, brutal.
This situation and this tragedy did not have to happen. Our law enforcement are doing everything that they can to protect the public.
Tiffany?
We're
Good
praying
morning.
for this deceased loved one's family and friends, but we also recognize that the Minnesota governor and the Minneapolis mayor need to take a long, hard look in the mirror. They need to evaluate their rhetoric, their conversations, and their encouragement of such violence against our citizens and our law enforcement officers. I'll remind you that Governor Walz today in his press conference said that our officers were not even law enforcement, which is a lie. He's called them the Gestapo. He's encouraged residents and citizens and violent rioters to resist. He's doxed their identities, putting themselves and their families' lives in jeopardy. He's refused to turn over murderers to federal law enforcement officers. He's protected illegal criminals and protected them from being brought to justice, and even overseen a historic, unprecedented theft of American taxpayer dollars. Tens of billions of dollars were stolen under his watch, and he allowed it to happen, and in some instances may have even facilitated it. In other cities and states across the country, we don't see this happen. Local, state, and officials work with us to make sure that we're making their streets safer. I'll point to the city of Memphis, which is where there is a Democrat mayor in place. He worked with us and our federal law enforcement officers, and we saw murder rates drop by 50% because of that partnership. We've seen historic lows in the criminal acts that have happened in that city. We've had the same amount of law enforcement officers there, but a very different result because of the leadership in place. Last week, ICE did over 2,000 different operations, and we saw people be brought to justice and the American people made safer because of that work. We don't have this problem in Texas or in Florida because those individuals in those states work with us, and they make sure that they keep peace and calm while they bring criminals to justice. In Minneapolis, Governor Walz and Mayor Fry, they instead choose violence. They instead choose to encourage the destruction of their city and the crime against their people. It appears that they want this lawlessness to continue. It appears that they want chaos to distract from the theft and the fraud and the corruption of their city. I'll remind you that this city has been corrupt for years with what we've seen with people that have been stealing taxpayer money, all under the leadership of Governor Walz and Mayor Fry. I'm asking for all the authorities in Minneapolis and the leaders to work with us. And there are 2 things that we have repeatedly asked the governor and the mayor to do. Number 1, all we want them to do is that when they are going to release a dangerous criminal from their jails, turn them over to us so we can get them out of this country as soon as possible. Since we have been back in the White House with President Trump's leadership, they have released over 490 criminals onto their streets rather than allow us to get them out of the country to keep families safe. The second thing that we have asked the governor and the mayor to do is to help us keep people safe. Just give us backup on the streets while we do our targeted operations to get illegal criminals out of our country. And then we wouldn't have to be there facing these types of situations that we face with violent rioters who are impacting and attacking our law enforcement officers. That's all. Those are the 2 requests that we've asked of them. We've asked them to help us do that so that we can continue to see success in Minneapolis like we see in so many other cities and communities across the country. But they have refused because they want us talking about attacking law enforcement officers instead of the fraud and the theft that they facilitated in Minnesota. One thing I'd like to do before I take your questions on that situation on the storm is give you a few facts about the storm and what we're facing here in the coming days. This storm is going to produce heavy snow. It's going to produce dangerous freezing rain and ice and life-threatening wind chills that will be sustained for days. Power outages, road closures, and other impacts have already started to impact the Midwest, the South, and the East Coast. The most important thing that people can do across this country is to please stay off the roads, to stay home when possible, unless you absolutely have to be out and about. That will not only ensure that you and your family are safe, but that emergency responders aren't out there trying to rescue you when they could be out doing other work to proactively keep people safe and at home. Stay alert by listening to different announcements from your local officials and from your state. We want to remind everybody that in these emergency disaster situations, it's your local officials and local emergency managers that that go out and execute response to these disasters. Your states manage it, and the federal government is here to support. We're here and have been opened and visiting and talking with all of the governors and local leaders to make sure they have everything that they need ahead of time and that we can be as prepared as possible for what is going to unfold in the coming days. I want you to make sure that you get the chance to visit the website ready.gov to see recommendations and advice for how you can protect your family and be prepared for the storm that is coming. We have 17 different states and the District of Columbia that have already declared states of emergency. President Trump has already approved emergency declarations at the federal level for these following.
Real quick, I'm going to allow her to speak for just a few more minutes, and then we got to move on. I can't listen to the entire press conference. We still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more stories to get through. So I'm going to let this play real quick, and I got to grab my flannel. It's fucking cold in here.
States. For South Carolina, the Commonwealth of Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, Maryland, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Indiana, and West Virginia. I'm sure there will be more coming, and we are turning those around immediately to make sure that states have the resources from the federal government that they've requested. I have spoken several times on conference calls, but also called personally governors and local leaders to facilitate the partnership that we need to help keep this federal response streamlined with their state responses. The Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, CISA, our cybersecurity team focused on the electrical grid and our critical infrastructure, the Coast Guard and our other federal partners are all embedded in state operation centers across the country. Governors remain in the lead on these responses, and we are continuously talking to them to see what they need to continue to take care of their citizens and make sure that people are safe. I activated the National Response Coordination Center, which is where you are right now, 2 days ago, and we are monitoring the storm and coordinating federal support for the affected areas. At my direction, FEMA has already pre-positioned commodities in many locations across the country. We've embedded partners in state emergency operations centers, and we've deployed IMAT teams, incident management assistant teams.
What's up, Straight? Great to see you in the chat, by the way.
With dozens more ready to deploy at any moment, besides those that have already been pre-positioned. We have dozens of urban search and rescue teams that are ready to go out and to save lives in partnership with our local and state authorities should that become necessary. We do have tens of thousands of people in affected states in the South that have lost power. We have utility crews that are working to restore that as quick as possible, and we expect to continue to see that as ice builds on power lines and trees are affected and we see more damage. But we have partnered with our energy companies and rural electric communities to make sure that we are able to facilitate the repairs as soon as possible to get the power on, especially in light of the cold temperatures that we see coming for days on end.
What's up, FAFO? Great to see you back in the chat.
We just ask that everyone would be smart, stay home if possible, take care of your family members, check on your neighbors, and continue to work with your local officials to get through this difficult storm. And we will continue to pray for God to bless.
All right, we're going to move on. Now we're going to see, we have an update. Frey asks Walls for National Guard help. Police chief speaks on protest. So let's go ahead and bring this up and see who is making this request. And I believe the mayor is speaking on this.
We are seeing Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Bry stepping up to the podium with U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Let's pull the audio up on this. This is the second time we've heard from the mayor today. If we see Kristi Noem stepping up at FEMA headquarters, we'll tap into her as well. In the meantime, here's Mayor Fry.
The city of Minneapolis is filing a declaration after today's shooting to encourage the judge to rule on a temporary restraining order on Monday that would grant us immediate relief and would help stop this operation that has been so harmful to the city of Minneapolis. The state of Minnesota has resulted in multiple shootings and tragic deaths. I have formally requested assistance from the National Guard to support the limited number of officers that we have in the Minneapolis Police Department. We have around 600 officers in total. Days off have been canceled. Our incredible Minneapolis police officers have been working tirelessly to do their day-to-day work, and simultaneously, they're put in the middle of these chaotic situations. We will not be able to do this on our own, and so we are getting assistance from both mutual aid jurisdictions as well as the request to the governor for the National Guard, and we're appreciative of the assistance. Our community is tired. Our officers are tired. Our businesses are tired, and this additional support is necessary. And again, the chaos that we are seeing is caused directly by ICE, border control, and this federal administration. Our top priority is keeping our neighbors and businesses safe, and the additional support will help us do that. Our community service officers are helping to deliver food to families that are in need. Community members are out there peacefully protesting. making sure that their voices are heard. They're escorting workers to their jobs. They're taking care of daycares. It has been extraordinary how people around our city have stepped up during this difficult time, and there is an incredible group of leaders in senators and members of Congress that are here with me to deliver a powerful message in just a couple of minutes. We're also working closely with our immigration task force to make sure that clear and transparent information is coordinated. We'll continue to do everything in our power to keep our neighbors safe and to stand up for our immigrant communities. Most of the protests that we've seen have remained peaceful. Let's keep it that way. Let's not counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own version of chaos here. I understand that people are angry. I'm angry. I understand that people are experiencing trauma. It makes sense. Our communities have been placed on the very front line, and this has been ongoing now for weeks. It must end. Remember, it's only our city that will suffer if there is damage or destruction that is done. Finally, to the victim's family and friends, our hearts are with you. Our love goes out to you. I know that there is nothing that I can say right now that will ease the pain. But I hope you know that Minneapolis cares deeply for you. There are 435,000 residents that will do everything possible to stand with you. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief O'Hara, who can give more of an update on the plans for tonight.
I am so behind
Thank you, Mayor.
on the chat. I'm trying my best to keep up with you guys, but it's just outrageous. I'm scrolling and scrolling forever. It's insane how many people are chatting.
Good evening. I'm going to provide a brief update on the events today and our plans to maintain order in the city. I recognize that this is a volatile and emotional situation, and our focus remains, as it always has been, on de-escalation, slowing things down, and maintaining peace and order in this city. The situation is stable right now, and it is peaceful. And
Yo, real quick, we got Evil Banana Wind coming in with the $2 saying, who wears more makeup, Gnome or Trump? Shit. Well, I very much appreciate the $2, my man. Definitely adds up.
Tend to keep
Thank
it
you
that
for
way. After our last press update, additional residents and demonstrators gathered today, and the situation deteriorated. Local and state law enforcement officers were surrounded on multiple sides by a mix of protesters and also agitators who engaged in unlawful acts. Individuals began erecting barricades, throwing glass bottles, ice chunks, and at least 2 separate fires were started in the immediate vicinity. Minneapolis police had to escort firefighters so that they could safely extinguish those fires. The number one priority of our police officers is to protect life and maintain public safety for all people in our community.
I'm just behind.
And so given the volatility and rising public safety risks for residents, for demonstrators, and police officers, state and local law enforcement did deploy less lethal and gas munitions at that assembly in order to allow for a safe egress of law enforcement and to prevent further violence and damage. We do everything that we possibly can to de-escalate whenever possible. And the actions that were taken today were in response to a dangerous and escalating situation that already had multiple confrontations. The gathering at the scene now is peaceful, and we need everyone to respect the lives and property of all people in our community. In order to maintain that peace, we have established a vehicle exclusionary zone in the affected area. That zone has allowed traffic to be safely managed and has significantly reduced the risk of escalation, ensuring access for emergency vehicles.
What's up, Extra Surprise? Good morning.
For residents of the area and for lawful, peaceful demonstrations. This zone will be maintained by uniformed police officers of the Minneapolis Police Department, working alongside members of the Minnesota National Guard. National Guard members will be wearing fluorescent yellow safety traffic vests and will be working alongside uniformed Minneapolis police. In addition to the Minnesota State Patrol and Hennepin County Sheriff's Office that assisted at the scene, the St. Paul Police, Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, and numerous Hennepin County suburban police departments are assisting with answering 911 calls in the city of Minneapolis today. The loss of human life, yet again, is a tragedy. We pray all people can recognize that, and we extend our condolences, as the mayor has said, to the loved ones of the deceased. To the people of our city, we understand that the pressure has been building for weeks. We understand the hurt and frustration that this causes. But again, if you choose to come out, if you choose to demonstrate, peacefully assemble, do so lawfully. And understand that the men and women in this uniform standing here tonight are committed first and foremost to protecting the lives of every single person in this city.
What's up, Virginia Chaos? And that's the very end of this. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on into Minneapolis fallout. Chuck Schumer says Dems will vote no on funding bill if DHS is included. Let's go ahead and bring this up. What's up, Virginia Chaos? Great to see you in the chat, bro. Let's go ahead and bring this up.
Live
Here we
now
go.
from Fox. I'm Shauna Kalafi, and we are continuing to
It's a quick
follow
update.
the aftermath of the fatal Border Patrol-involved shooting in Minneapolis this morning. A 37-year-old man was shot and killed by federal agents there. And we do have some news in reaction to that right now. This is a live look at Capitol Hill as Senator Chuck Schumer is saying that Democrats in the Senate will block the government funding bill if it includes money for the Department of Homeland Security. This is in reaction to that fatal shooting this morning. We have a couple posts on social media about this breaking news. This is one from Bloomberg. It says Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer vowed to block a massive funding package next week unless Republicans agree to strip funding for the Department of Homeland Security, dramatically increasing the risk for a partial U.S. government shutdown. And we have the post from Schumer himself. He says, what's happening in Minnesota is appalling and unacceptable in any American city. Democrats sought common sense reforms in the Department of Homeland Security spending bill, but because of
What's up, Joseph? Good morning.
Republicans' refusal to stand up to President Trump, the
Grumple.
DHS bill is woefully inadequate to rein in the abuses of ICE. I will vote no. Senate Democrats will not provide the votes to proceed to the appropriations bill if the DHS funding bill is included. And we also have this from a Fox News correspondent, Chad Pergram. He says, Schumer, this is the quote, Senate Democrats will not provide the votes to proceed to the appropriations bill if the DHS funding bill is included. Pergram says this all but assures a government shutdown on January 31st. And the last post here, this is from Notice congressional reporter Daniela Diaz. She says the likelihood of a partial shutdown is very, very high. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement, quote, Senate Democrats will not provide the votes to proceed in the appropriations bill if the DHS funding bill is included. Caucus will have a call at 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So we're going to continue following this again as Senator Chuck Schumer saying that
Jimmy Mack coming in with the $2, by the way. Were the fires peaceful? Well, shit. I very much appreciate the $2, Jimmy Mack, and inserting your voice there.
Senate Democrats will block the government funding bill if it does include money for the Department of Homeland Security. And that, of course, increases the risk for another government shutdown. This is something we will be watching very closely here on Live Now from Fox.
And, of course, that's what we do. We report and follow all of these stories to the best that we can. All right, so ICE and CBP, which is Border Patrol, by the way, leaders speak after deadly shooting involving federal agents. So let's go ahead and bring this up, and we'll go ahead and discuss it real quick. Let me go ahead and grab this. Here we go.
My name's Greg Bovino, Commander at Large.
And we're not going to be able to listen to this entire thing. We still have 1, 2, 3 stories after this.
For CBP assets here in Minneapolis. I'd like to take a few moments here before we take questions and before we hear from my colleague, Mr. Marcos Charles, to talk about a subject that I think is very important given the events over the past couple of days.
What's up, Stax? Good morning to you. Great to see you in the chat.
And that topic is the topic of choices. Choices. Now, choosing or making a choice is one of the only true freedoms that any of us really have, is to make a choice. Whether that's the choice to be here today as the media, the choice to go to school, join the military, join law enforcement. Making a choice is a freedom that resides within us. Now, good choices are important in life, as we all know. And many actions that take place are due to our choices. The choice to, say, cross
What's up, Lily? Good morning.
The border illegally. That is a choice that someone makes. To cross the border illegally, that's a choice. The choice not to utilize the CBP Home app, that's a choice. Not standing in line and doing it the right way, that is a choice. And there are always actions that result from our choices. When you choose to use your 5-year-old child as a shield to evade law enforcement, that is a choice that someone makes. And there are actions and consequences that result from that choice. Or when you're a politician or a community leader, you make a lot of choices there, some very important, wide-ranging, and in-depth choices.
In-depth.
When as a politician you choose collusion and corruption as a choice, then there are consequences and actions that take place because of that. That's one reason the U.S. Border Patrol and ICE are here in Minneapolis by the thousands, is because of those choices. When politicians, community leaders, and some journalists engage in that heated rhetoric we keep talking about, when they make the choice to vilify law enforcement, calling law enforcement names like Gestapo, or using the term kidnapping. That is a choice that is made. There are actions and consequences that come from those choices. And then when someone chooses to listen to a politician, a so-called journalist, a community leader that spouted that type of vilification towards law enforcement or anything else, when you choose to listen to that, that is a choice, and there are consequences and actions there also. I think we saw that yesterday. And those actions and choices can obviously have tragic consequences, bad outcomes that law enforcement never wants to see. Law enforcement never wants to see a bad consequence due to a poor choice. Now, these choices have reverberations throughout society.
When he does that, is he like fake crying, or what is he doing with that?
Let's take a look at, go ahead and put that on the screen, please. Yesterday, Border Patrol agents were engaged in a targeted law enforcement effort to apprehend.
Shout out to Oklahoma, man. I very much appreciate that. Yes, make sure you guys double tap that screen and hit the like button if you're on the horizontal side, and subscribe also because it's free. And guess what? This is what we do Monday through Friday. And then, of course, we have members only on Saturday morning. So anyways, thank you guys.
This individual here, Mr. Jose Huerta Chuma, look at his criminal record: domestic assault, intentional infliction of bodily harm, disorderly conduct. He's also got some other records there as well. This individual remains at large today.
What's up, Brother Dean?
This individual
Good morning.
is still roaming the streets today. This is the individual on that targeted law enforcement efforts that Border Patrol agents were engaged in yesterday when they were disrupted, assaulted, and prevented from conducting that Title VIII mission by individuals intent on making the choice to riot, to create anarchy, and to be a violent mob. This individual walks the streets today because of those choices made by politicians and those perhaps weaker-minded constituents that chose to follow directions of those politicians. Sad state of affairs. Now, enforcing the law is not a choice. I choose to be a Border Patrol agent. Mr. Marcos Charles chooses to be an ICE agent, but enforcing the law, that's not a choice. That is a duty.
Good morning,
As we
Robert.
all know, those laws were enacted by Congress, signed by the executive, and upheld most of the time by the judiciary. Those are the laws of our land. That is our duty to enforce those laws, whether that's a Title VIII immigration law, whether that's chasing a bank robber or a spy or whatever else. That is our duty, whether it's a state and local law enforcement agency, and they make choices also. Do they support federal law enforcement going after Mr. Jose Huerta Chuma? Or
He just pretty much laid it out there right there. Shit.
Bruh.
All right, we're moving on. I can't go through this whole thing because we're at 52 minutes right now. We usually try to consolidate everything into an hour, and we still have 3 more stories to get into. So we need to get involved. So former police chief speaks after federal agents involved in Minneapolis shooting. Let's go ahead and bring this up, and we're going to only play a little bit of this too because it's also long.
All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Just more than 24 hours after the fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen, 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Preddy in Minnesota, continuing to spark backlash. Also, plenty of conversations right now in the Twin Cities, plenty of protests. As Democrats also demanding federal immigration officers leave Minnesota after a U.S. Border Patrol agent fatally shot that man, set off clashes with protesters. Federal officials say agents fired defensively Saturday morning when Preddy, the 37-year-old, stepped into a confrontation between an immigration officer and a woman off the streets. Officials say Preddy was armed, but no bystander video appears to show him holding a weapon. The Minneapolis police chief said Preddy had a permit to carry that weapon. Let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox and bring into the conversation Jeffrey Halstead, a former Fort Worth police chief and spokesperson for Genesis. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And of course, Gregory Bovino, the Border Patrol commander, saying the investigation is fully underway right now. He's not really commenting on an exact conclusion, but based on what you've seen, what you've heard over the last 24 hours, what are we looking at? What does this investigation stand?
Oh, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I think the complexity of this incident is going to cause them a significant delay in getting facts out. One thing that law enforcement has done in the last 5 to 6 years, they've sped up the release of body cam videos. Now, a lot of times law enforcement will say, well, it's evidentiary and we can't release it yet. But yet, when there's an armed robbery of a convenience store, we take that video and we push it out immediately. So I think there needs to be a faster turnaround time on body cam video because That is absolutely critical and crucial, and it can bring a little bit of a semblance of facts getting out. Because right now, some of the social media narratives are so off base, and it's fueling a lot of the animosity.
And Bovino said that they're compiling all of these bits of evidence, all of that, and they will make a conclusion about it. But one of the notes that we continue to talk about how Border Patrol and ICE is different than local law enforcement, state law enforcement, as many of them don't have that body cam video. Can you talk about maybe the contrast there and how beneficial the body cam would have been if an individual there did have it on?
Glad you asked that question. That's my level of expertise. I was the first major city police department to deploy body cams back in 2010 when no one was using them. So they do have a manner in which they can record all of this, whether it's a smartphone or an issued camera or working with local city, county, state, and federal. That I would not use that as an excuse in our profession. If you have a badge and a gun, you should have a body cam. Simple as that. Because transparency, accountability is the platform of the American justice system. So they need to be transparent. They need to have this technology. And if it isn't there, they need to grab funding right away because these conflicts are getting very, very challenging for all.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why at this point ICE isn't. I mean, I would assume ICE would actually want body cams, but maybe they don't want them.
All of us, even in the law enforcement profession. So they definitely need to have those body cams with them.
Yeah, and your expertise on this is so obviously deep and profound in terms of this. Can you speak to at all why Border Patrol, why in ICE, they do not have it? They are at the federal level. We see departments like that in Fort Worth have them. Can we speak to potentially why they didn't get instituted across the board?
Yeah, most of it is going to rely on funding. But I remember when we were working, and I'm going back almost a decade, when I was working as a consultant trying to help DEA, ATF, and others. They decided not to move forward with that technology back in 2016, 2017, because they were afraid that it would jeopardize their tactical operations, tactical movement, or identity of certain personnel. You have to remember as citizens that the identity of these employees, it needs to be protected. They work very, very dangerous jobs, high profile jobs, especially in Customs and Border Patrol. It's extremely dangerous operation. However, times have changed. Technology has dramatically increased. It's going to be time to relook at that technology deployment because it would have been invaluable immediately to get that out.
And can we talk to just the differences between body cam footage and other images? Because we've seen plenty of citizens there on the ground, protesters on the ground gather these. How much can body cam versus that be used? Are they going to try to compile this in that way? Is there basically everything we need to see based on the fact that there were so many different perspectives and eyewitnesses on the ground?
That's true. And, you know, some of those videos are extremely grainy and they're very unclear depending on the model of the device that they're filming on. With that said, the complexity of gathering all of those videos and images and eyewitness interviews, it's going to take so much time that I don't think the public and some of our elected officials on both sides are going to have the amount of patience needed because this could take months for these facts to get out. But you have to have an entire team. And I mean a lot of people reviewing all this technology, getting the footage, and making sure the data, the metadata, and the video is real. It hasn't been edited and altered in any way, and then it can be used as evidentiary.
Yeah, we live in 2026, and obviously artificial intelligence, some of those discrepancies with that also on the forefront of these people's minds. You mentioned one of the reasons potentially these individuals don't wear body cams is the fact that they're in high-profile, high-stress environments like this. They also noted that the people, and Greg Bovino said all the officers, all the officials involved in this fatal shooting yesterday are still working. Does that surprise you?
I think that's going to come down to a staffing issue. In standards, city, county, and state law enforcement, anytime there's a deadly use of force encounter, they are immediately put on administrative leave. Two reasons. One, the stress. Being involved in a deadly force encounter is overwhelmingly stressful. And two, the availability for them to be ready at all times for detailed interviews, both the administrative and the criminal side of these investigations. Having them immediately back to work is definitely concerning because the long-term health and wellness of those individuals, it is going to be sacrificed because that incident, it wears on them for the rest of their lives.
Of course, I would imagine. All right, we're going to move on, though. All right, winter storm causes widespread power outages across the U.S. This just came out 3 hours ago, by the way. So let's go ahead and bring this up and see where we're seeing power outages at, and then we'll wrap up with our final story saying, well, it is Trump says he is sending border czar Tom to Minnesota. So that just happened 2 hours ago.
Major headlines coming with this winter storm are these severe power outages that we are seeing in several cities, in several states across the U.S. I want to take a look now over at this. It's a power outage map. So take a look here on your screen as I provide some of these updated numbers. This is courtesy of poweroutage.us. So I'm just going to make it full here for a minute so you can see the states that are being impacted, and they're divided up by the number of customers.
Damn, that's crazy. I live here in Alabama, and I'm very surprised it went all the way around us on this.
That are without power at this time, and the different shades represent how many people don't have power this morning. So just for reference, if we look here at Kansas, it's not shaded in a particular color because there's just about 122 customers without power. So anything below 10K is going to be in white. Anything between 10K and 50K is going to be this blue. So if we look here in West Virginia, we have just under 20,000 customers without power because of this winter storm. Here in Virginia, just under 25,000 customers. Then we move down to North Carolina, about just under 29,000 people here without power. South Carolina, 43,829. And then here in Georgia, just under 34,000 customers without power. We're going to move on to these states that are more severely impacted. They're going to be shaded in the yellow. So this is between 50,000 and 100,000 customers without power at this time. And we're starting here in Kentucky, where we are just over 50,000 customers without power. Then here in Texas, another area that is seeing some severe impacts because of the storm, we have 62,454 customers without power. Now, this is across the entire state. Here in the boxes that I've been highlighting, it also kind of breaks it down so you can see
Into
in
county.
reference to how this kind of looks in the grand scheme of things. So customers out.
Right. Like, I mean, Texas, it's fairly solid except for a few key areas.
For example, in Texas,
for an
just
example.
over 62,000. The customers track.
Now, I want to see, into Louisiana, Mississippi. I want to see those numbers.
Are over 15 million. So the outage percentage is at about 40% at this time, or
0.40%.
I should say.
0.4%.
And then here in the red, we have customers about 100,000 to 500,000 customers
Wow.
without power.
So we got almost 5.5% of people in Louisiana that are out.
Louisiana is one of these states that is seeing the severe power outages with 125,000 people, just over that, without power. Then here in Mississippi, 157,000.
Damn, 10 point,
or just under
almost 11%. Holy shit.
58,000 people without power. Their outage is looking pretty severe at just about 10%. They track about 1.5 million customers here. And then finally here in Tennessee, we have 252,934 people without power. Customers tracked at just over 3 million. So we are at 7.32% of folks without power in Tennessee. So those are the states that are being hit the hardest here, the ones that are shade. And we kind of went through them. We'll be refreshing this page throughout the day just to provide some more of those updates there. We know that power companies are working hard.
Yeah, that's got to be really, really hard when it gets cold and different types of weather. Yeah, our infrastructure is not the best, for damn sure. We definitely need to upgrade it. I think we should actually put new grids in, more efficient grids, all types of shit. But that takes a lot of money. Anyways, Trump says he is sending border czar Tom to Minnesota. Let's go ahead and play this, and this is our last story for the morning. And I'll set up a raid too.
Throughout most of this morning, we have been focused on the severe winter weather and some of the impacts that it's had in several cities across the U.S. We're going to get back to that in just a moment. But first, I do want to head over to more breaking news that we have been following very closely. It involves that latest deadly shooting with a Border Patrol agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota. One person was killed, and now we have a brand new statement from President Trump. He says that he is sending border czar Tom Homan down to Minneapolis. Taking a look here at this, it's the full statement that I do want to read to you. He issued this via Truth Social, and it says, quote, "I am sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He has not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people there. Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. Separately, a major investigation is going on with respect to the massive $20 billion plus welfare fraud that has taken place in Minnesota and is at least partially responsible for the violent organized protests going on in the streets. Additionally, the DOJ and Congress are looking at, quote, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who left Somalia with nothing and is now reportedly worth more than $44 million. Time will tell all. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Transitioning now to a live image that we have over in Minneapolis. In just a moment, I do want to dip into the coverage from our partners at Fox 9, who have been following all of these developments very closely. As you can imagine, it remains their top story on this Monday, along with the severe winter weather. But just an update from over the weekend in case you haven't been following it closely, and also things happening later on today. The Associated Press saying this, that a federal judge will hear arguments today on whether she should at least temporarily halt the immigration crackdown in Minnesota that has led to the fatal shootings by two government officers. The state of Minnesota and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul sued the Department of Homeland Security earlier this month, 5 days after Renee Good was shot by an immigration and customs officer. The shooting of Alex Preddy by a Border Patrol officer on Saturday has only added urgency to that case. Since the original filing, the state and cities have substantially added to their original request in an effort to restore the order that existed before the Trump administration launched Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota. That was back on December 1st. Democratic Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said he plans to attend. The lawsuit asks U.S. District Judge Kathleen Menendez to order a reduction in the number of federal law enforcement officers and agents in Minnesota back to the level before the surge and to limit the scope of the enforcement operation. Justice Department attorneys have called the lawsuit legally frivolous and said Minnesota wants a veto over federal law enforcement. They asked the judge to reject the request or to at least stay her order pending an anticipated appeal. Ellison said during a news conference on Sunday that the lawsuit is needed because of the unprecedented nature of the surge. He went on to say, quote, "It is a novel abuse of the Constitution that we're looking at right now. No one can remember a time when we've seen something like this. It is unclear when the judge might rule, and the case has implications for other states that have been or could become targets of ramped up federal immigration enforcement operations." Attorneys general from 19 states plus the District of Columbia, led by California, filed a friend of the court brief supporting Minnesota. Menendez, so the U.S. District Judge that is going to be presiding over this case, ruled in a separate case back on January 16th that federal officers in Minnesota can't detain or tear gas peaceful protesters who aren't obstructing authorities, including people who follow and observe agents. An appeals court did temporarily suspend that ruling 3 days before Saturday's shooting, but the plaintiffs in that case, represented by the American Civil Liberties Union of Minnesota, they asked the appeals court late on Saturday for an emergency order lifting the stay in light of Preddy's killing. The Justice Department argued in a reply filed Sunday that they should remain in place, calling the injunction unworkable and overly broad. So there is a lot to this entire situation down there in Minnesota. Now, the latest was the fact that Tom Homan will be heading to Minneapolis. I also want to put up this, a social media post from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She says Tom Homan will be managing ICE operations on the ground in Minnesota to continue arresting the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. In addition, Tom will coordinate with those leading investigations into the massive widespread fraud that has resulted in billions of taxpayer dollars being stolen from law-abiding citizens in Minnesota. We're going to work to get some more reaction from local leaders.
Okay,
in
so
Minnesota.
right there is where it says where the press briefing is going to be at. So it's 1 p.m. Eastern, so that'd be noon my time, which is 54 minutes from now, 53 minutes now. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I can't thank each and every single one of you guys enough. Obviously, I cannot do this by myself, so I'm very honored to be able to do this Monday through Friday. And then members only on Saturday. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. I very much appreciate that. Double tap the screen. And hit that subscribe button if you already haven't done that. So we're going to be rating our buddy Chatting with Stacks. He's live right now. Make sure you guys let him know we're coming through with the Mike Ball raid. And until tomorrow morning for more of the world's madness. Until then, God bless everyone. We'll see you guys very soon. And stay safe out there. Make sure you guys stay warm as well. It's cold as fuck. See you guys.
From the depths of darkness, a voice emerges. A host with a fire burning in his soul. With a heart steel and a spirit unbroken, he rides on 2 wheels ready to claim his throne. Amidst the chaos and the thunderous roar, insane wheels rise as a force to be reckoned with. Fueled by the power that only metal can bestow, he takes his stand, refusing to submit.